Okay, so we're looking at decimals now, and you need to be confident with your place value for this, because we have got 4 different topics. We have got our adding, we've got subtracting, we've got multiplying, and we've got dividing. Okay, so you've got 4 different areas that you need to look at when it comes to decimals and how you apply these in certain questions. Okay, with adding decimals, it is all about the place value and the position of that decimal point. So you need to make sure when you've got an example, you are lining up that decimal point. So if we look at the first example, okay, we've got 2.07 plus 3.2. So we need to align our decimal points. So what we've got 2.07, that line there, where that decimal point is exactly where all the decimal points need to align. So what we've got now is you've got 3.2, but we're missing something in that column. Remember, if there's nothing there, it's 0. Now we're going to add these. 7 plus 0, 7. 0 plus 2 is 2. Anything along that blue line, you need a decimal point. 2 plus 3 is 5. Okay, that's just one example. Okay, let's look at our second example. What we've got here is 7.8 plus 2.009. We're going to do the same thing. We've got 7.8. Okay, we've got our, this is the line where our decimal needs to always line up. And you've got 2.009. Now be really careful. You've got to put some zeros there to make sure each of the columns has a value. Now we're going to add them up. 0 plus 9, 9, 0 plus 0, 8 plus 0, we've got to put our decimal point in there, and 7 plus 2 is 9.809. Okay, here are a few examples for you to try. So 3.09 plus 5.87, 4.56 plus 3.46, 7.89 plus 1.34. Have a go at those by yourself and see if you can get to the right answers. Okay, subtracting is really similar to adding. You've got to make sure you align your decimal points and your place values in the correct position. So if you look at this example, 4.9 take away 2.35. So what we're going to do is you've got 4.9. We're going to put our line in for our decimals. So all our decimals need to align with that. Okay, so we've got 2. I'm going to put that into black. So you've got 2.35. We're missing something from this column value, so we're going to put a 0 there. And we're going to take away. So 0 take away 5, you can't do it. So you need to borrow 1. Okay, so what's 10 take away 5? It's 5. 8 take away 3 is 5. Our decimal goes along that line. 4 to take away 2 is 2. So our answer is 2.55. Okay, so let's look at a second example. Okay, a little bit of a harder question. So we look at this one. So you've got 3.08 take away 4.06. So we've got 3.08. Let's make sure we align our decimal points. Take away 4.06. So we've got 8 take away 6 is 2. 0 take away 0 is 0. Put our decimal in. 3 take away 4. We've got a -1 value. Okay, it's all about this place value. Make sure everything is aligned. Okay, so with multiplying decimals, what we've got to look at, say we've got 0.8 times 0.2. So to start at, let's look at our 0.8. So what we've got here, we need to make it an integer. Okay, that means it can't be a decimal. To do that, we've got to move our decimal point. So to move our decimal point, we've got to multiply it by 10 to get our answer of 8. We've got to remember, really important, remember we've moved our decimal place one place to the right. Now if we look at our 0.2, okay, it's exactly the same process. We want to make it an integer. Okay, so we've got to multiply again that by 10, and that gives us a value of 2, but it's really important, remember we've moved that once as well. So now we've got this equation here, so if we look, we've got 8 times 2. So what we've got to do is let's just do 8 times 2. We can do that from our multiplication. That comes to 16. That's not the end though, because what we've got here is we've moved the 2 decimals to the right to make them positive. Don't have to be positive, sorry. Make them whole integers. What we've got now is we've got to move it back. So we've moved it not once, we've moved it twice. So what we've got to do is we've got to move our decimal points back 2 places. So our answer here is going to be 0.16. Okay, that's our first example. Okay, let's look at our second example here. We've got 0.003 times 0.04. So what we've got to do is exactly the same as we did earlier. So we've got 0.003. How many times we've got to move the decimal point? It's a grand total of 3 times. So we end up with 3. We've got to remember we've moved it 3 times. Now we've got 0.04. Okay, we've moved it twice. So we need to remember that. We'll put that on the side. Right, so that means we've got a value of 3 times 4. Hopefully we can all do this. It comes to 12. Right, now we've got to deal with our decimal points. We've moved it a grand total of 5 times. That means we've got to move it backwards a grand total of 5 times. So we've got to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's where we put our decimal points. We've got 0.00012. So our answer is 0.00012. So step by step. And here are a few examples for you to try. Okay, dividing decimals is a little bit different to multiplying decimals, but the first thing that we've got to do is exactly the same, is we need to get them both to whole numbers. So we've got to get rid of those decimal points. So if we look at 8.2 to start, we're going to have to multiply it by 10, okay, because we're going to move our decimal point over 1. So what we get is 8.2 goes to 82. Okay, so we've moved that over 1 decimal point. If we look at 0.02, we're moving over 2 spaces. So we've moved over twice. Right, so what we've got here then is we've got 82 divided by 2. So 82 divided by 2. It goes into 2 goes into 8 4 times, 2 goes into 2 once, so we get an answer of 41. But exactly the same in our multiplication, that is not the answer. because what we've got to look at is how many times we've moved that decimal point. So in the first example, we moved it once. Okay, in the second example, we moved it twice. So the first thing we need to look at is what is the difference between these two numbers? How do you get from 1 to 2? And that means we've got to move it 1 point. So for this case, if the difference between the number of times the decimal point is moved is 1, we've got to move our decimal point with our 41 1 point. And remember, if you divide by a decimal, the number's always going to get bigger. So if we've got 41.0 and we're going to move it 1 decimal point, what we've got is 410.0, and that is our answer. Okay, let's look at a second example now. Okay, then our second example is going to be 3.6 divided by 0.03. 0.003, sorry. So what we've got is 3.6 and 0.003. So they're the first two things that we've got to analyse. Remember, we're looking at getting positive, doesn't have to be positive, whole numbers. Okay, so you've got 3.6. We're going to multiply that by 10 to get 36. Okay, so we've moved that over 1 decimal place. And in the second circumstance, what we've got is 0.03. Okay, we've moved that over 3 times. We've moved that over 3 places. Okay, now we've got our positive, we've got our whole number, sorry. So what we've got is 36 divided by 3, and that equals 12. Right, and remember what we did in the last question. First things that we've got to do is we've got to look at what is the difference between how many times we've moved those decimal points. Okay, from 1 to 3, that means we've moved it 2. So when we look at our value of 12, we've got to move our decimal point 1, 2 times. Okay, so that gives us an answer of 1,200, and that gives us our decimal point. Okay. When you look at your questions to try, you should pay close attention to the last question. Remember the method I've told you and stick to that. Okay, so when you look through, stick to the method and see if you can get that answer to the last one.